to another episode in our Getting Started with Apex. Trying to use the camera a little bit and to hopefully make these videos a little more interactive, hopefully a little more personal. So today we are going to talk about static methods versus instance methods. I think most of the trailheads we've done so far use static methods, but as a developer, it's pretty important that you understand the difference between these things. So we're going to I tried to have a little fun today. Maybe not the most realistic example, but I'm hoping it will drive the point home of the difference between static and instance. So take a second, hit like and subscribe, and let's start doing some coding. We're going to open up Illuminated Cloud. And so what we're going to do today is, we're going to create a new class, and today we're going to create a starship. Starship, I think that's capital S. Capital S would be the right way to do that. Add. All right. So let's just say first thing, so we got a starship. And let's give our starship a static method. So we'll say public static land ship. And, because we're not returning anything, we got to put a void in there. Remember, if we're not returning anything from the method, it needs a void. System debug, and all we're going to do is the ship is landed. All right, and you know what? We'll do another one. We'll do public static fire weapons. Okay, and again, I need a void. Keep forgetting that today. It's a great thing about a good editor is it reminds you when you make those mistakes. System debug, and pew, pew, pew. All right, let's compile that. And open up Anonymous Apex just for an example. And clear that out. Okay, so if we wanted to access those static methods, all we have to do is, so we've got our starship, and we use dot notation, and we can access those methods directly from the class name, fire weapons. And if you remember, those log to the console. So when we run this, we'll go land ship. Run that. There we go. So we can see we called the fire weapons method on Starship, and we called the land ship static method on Starship, and got exactly what we expected here. Pew, 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 and the ship has landed. These are maybe, like I said, not the most realistic, but that is, and I think it makes more sense when you see what an instance method looks like instead. So the idea behind an instance method, or static versus instance, I'm going to say the little more computer science-y definition, and I say that as a guy without a degree in computer science or anything close. I got my degree in history. Is that an instance method requires creating an object. And that's what classes do. They are basically they're blueprints for creating objects. But our static methods don't require creation of an object. So we're going to create an object and show you a little bit. So first, usually if we have a class that's going to create an object, in this case our starship, there's probably things that they need to know about their state. What is that class? When that object is created, what does it know about the world, right? So let's just say we're going to give it a public string name of our ship. Okay. Public string, we'll say captain, has a captain. And that should actually be a capital S. These are the sort of things, right? Like I'm saying, like Apex would totally run that with a lowercase s, but strings are classes, and classes should start with a capital S. So we want to, just makes me feel a little bit better about myself. And we're going to say public integer crew size, okay? So these are what we call member variables, instance variables. These are things that have to be given values when we create a new starship. So first, actually, what we need to do is create a constructor. So, and the constructor is kind of what we use to initialize those variables with values. So constructors always have the same name as our class. So public starship, parentheses, curly braces, and I'm going to say string name, string captain, and integer crew size. Okay? So we're saying when you call the constructor, these are the values you can pass in. And then we're going to use the values that came in through the constructor and give those values to our member variables, right? So we're going to say this name equals name, semicolon. This captain equals captain. And this dot crew size equals crew size. Okay? So we're saying, hey, when we call this constructor and we give it a name, it's going to say this name is equal to the name that was passed in the constructor. So real quickly, I'm gonna open up Anonymous Apex. I'm gonna show you what that looks like. We're gonna create a new starship. Starship Enterprise. I'm sure you knew that was coming, right? I mean, we're developers, so they should be nerdy and have Star Trek references. Equals new starship. And we needed, our parameters were a name, so we got to give it a name, and that was a string, so it's going to go between quotation mark, Enterprise. James T. Kirk, and you know what? I forgot the crew size of the Enterprise. It was a lot, though, so we'll say 4,000. All right, and my editor's got a red line under there saying constructor is not defined. Integer crew size, public starship. So I'm going to run this and see what happens. Unexpected token Enterprise. Let's try to figure out. I'm going to, just in case something did not compile, I'm gonna force save that. Let's try this again. This is development, and sometimes it's weird. Starship Enterprise, new starship. Let's try this again. And Enterprise. Just to speed this up, we're going to say Kirk. And back to 4,000. And I have no idea why. Sometimes I feel like development is like this. It'll work now. So let's compile that. And we'll just show. So we're going to go enterprise.captain. You know, actually we want to debug those, right? System.debug. So thanks for hanging in there with me. And I try not to edit out the stuff so you see what development is really like, at least what it's like for me. Maybe you can learn, maybe there's a better developer out there that doesn't have these problems that I have. System.debug, enterprise.crew size. All right. Let's run that, see what we get. So there we can see. So we were able to access those values. We assigned them to the constructor, and then we were able to access those values. But that's creating a, open that back up. That's creating a class, right? The new keyword. So when we use new, we say we are instantiating a new starship object. And we are giving it values of Enterprise, Kirk, and 4,000. But we still haven't actually done any instance methods, right? So we are going to say public static beam up. You know, let's do beam down first. Not that it really matters, but beam down. Integer num to beam. Now, how many people are we going to send down to the planet? Static. We got to put a void in there. And I'm going to do one more. And that's not a static method. That's the whole point of this video is the difference. So let's not make that a static method. It's just it's an instance method. And we're going to do public void beam up. Integer num to beam up. You know, if we're going to say that's num to beam up, it makes me feel better if I call this one num to beam down. All right. So then we could just say, because we are beaming down, crew size, we're going to say minus equals num to beam down. And then we're just going to, for the sake of this, we'll just put the new crew size in the debug log. And we got this one. Crew size plus equals num to beam up. All right. Debug crew size. So the idea here, right, so we have to actually call these instance methods on an actual instantiated object because crew size, so these are not using, they're not using anything about the starship state, right? Land ship isn't accessing anything up. He doesn't need to know any of that stuff. It's just going to land the ship. It's just going to fire the weapons. But in order to beam down or beam up our crew members, we have got to know the crew size, right? So we have got to have created a new object in memory with those values instantiated. So let's go back to our anonymous Apex. But you know what? First, I have not compiled this. So let's do that. All right. Back to anonymous Apex. And let's do system dot. You know we don't because we already debugged to the console. So we can just say enterprise dot beam down. We're going to beam down 4 people. All right. Let's run that. See what we get. So there you can see. So we started off with a crew size of 4,000. We beamed down 4, and the state of the enterprise object was reduced to 3,996. Now, let's say, I don't know, we've got a whole bunch of people that Captain Kirk is going to rescue. Beam up. Those 4 people in the away team went down, and they are going to bring back 100 people on the planet below to save them. So we'll say they're going to beam up 104. Run that again. And there you can see. So now our crew size went up to 4,100. But this would not work if we did not. So let's comment this out. Right? So now my editor already turned that red. It's saying, hey, like, you know, we don't know what you're talking. You can't call beam up and beam down on the Enterprise because, well, so in fact, that's a bad example. Let's we'll put that back in. Because we showed how we could just do starship fire weapons, starship land ship up above, right? But let's go up here and let's go starship, whoop, not string, starship dot. So my editor's, you know, like it's not even giving me that as an option, but let's just type it in and try to beam up. I'm going to beam up 10 people. All right. So already my editor's trying to help me. I threw a red line under there saying you can't do it, but let's ignore it and let's run it anyway. Compile failure line 3. It's a non-static method, cannot be referenced from a static concept. Context void, starship beam up. So this is actually a common error that you'll see once in a while. And that's just saying, hey, you tried to use a instance method from a static context. And what that means is you did not instantiate a new object of that class, meaning I did not take the starship class and call new on it to create a new Starship object in memory with all of these variables with data in them. So that is a quick kind of down and dirty, and I hope fun example of an instance method versus a static method. If this was helpful to you at all, please hit like and subscribe. Let me know what you might like to see in the comments. Keep on coding. Try to get a little bit better every single day. This is 80%, 90% practice, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, everybody.